Yeah, I would love to hear. I think I can relate to all three of you. I was also the only Hispanic in my class or even in my program. But I would love to hear. I would love to hear your challenges, and if you ever brought them up as a student to your administration, to your professors, or if you ever proposed, changes in faculty, or suggested to bring in other people, as guest speakers to talk about diversity, or were you were you complacent with how everything was? And I'm opening this up to anyone.
For me, I feel like I just kind of accepted things as they were. So I thought I had, just as I was preparing for this discussion, how do we frame the conversation? There's the current event side of things. There's also design as a discipline. There's design education, but um, my thoughts have been just focused on past, present, future. Okay, so you go to school and you are working on your present, and you inform your present through the past. But the past I was taught, this design history, one thing I did notice is there were no black designers. And I thought, why are there no black designers? This is weird. And I never asked the question out loud. I think maybe just out of fear, or I didn't want to seem like I was complaining, if you will. One of the things my parents and I think my culture influenced a bit in myself is this tendency to not complain or call attention to myself. And so it wasn't until later in life that I came into my own where I could just call something out, at work, for example. I've got stories on that. But yeah, the history side of education I struggled with. I remember meeting Antonio Beltran at Insight. So when we were, that's in Chicago, when we were, I think, sophomores or juniors, we go on a trip to visit design firms, leave Utah. At least the students here still do that. And you visit a metropolitan area and you get to meet people. And I remember walking in and just kind of like doing this double take, like, what? There's a black designer here? And again, it's that whole idea of like, hey, I want to have this connection because this is going to give me some comfort, and help me not feel so weird. So he and I mean, we haven't been in touch as much lately, but I remember being as a student, how helpful that was to have that connection and feel like, oh, I have someone who can relate to me. And having Jasmine here and Kevin, who've been aware of things I've done, it's also cool to see that here we are, over a decade later, and there's more of us, and that's something fun that I've been able to see as I've progressed from a student to professional to now. So I think the history is one that I struggle with, particularly as you consider, and you can tell me to shut up when you're ready. But particularly as I consider things like, and Hector, you and I have talked about this, 10 principles of design, as codified by Dieter Rams. He's great, all of that, but that's coming from one perspective. And the design industry as a whole, and it was a good thing at the time, right? It helped create some structure about what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. And it was kind of a, what's the word? An opposite to kind of this, over the top design aesthetic and approach that definitely skewed more artistic and expressive. That's not to say you can't be artistic and expressive as a designer, but that German structure implementation was good. But I doubt, and I don't know, I haven't spoken with Dieter, but I doubt that there was a multicultural approach to coming up with that. And I've always struggled with that. Like, okay, here's 10 principles. And these principles have been, like I said, adopted by many designers, subconsciously or consciously. But what room is there for, some African expression of what we consider to be good design or other cultures? And how do we move forward as a design profession, and have that mindset? And I think it does come down to diversity in teams, diversity in education, so that we can have a more complete view of things.
Maybe to add to the experience, of what immediately comes to mind was a moment, freshman year of undergrad. Again, I graduated the only African American in the mechanical engineering department. So yeah, similar story about being like used to being alone on your own island, and the code switching and the just navigating the politics of that experience, right? But I remember my freshman advisor at the first sign of challenge, like maybe it was that first round of midterm grades, even before the semester was complete. I'm not sure, engineering's for you, and just very subjective rationale around you should go do something else, like do business or do liberal arts. And it's like, well, no, I understand like Notre Dame may be a jump from the high school where I'm coming from, but I want to figure this out. I want to find the whether it's tutoring or whatever it is to get on this trajectory in a good way. But the discouragement, I think, planted a huge seed of like, I'm not going to just immediately listen to that. At the first wind of challenge, I'm going to do what it takes to figure it out. And so I think later in life, going through professional walks through engineering and business and discovering design within the Nike environment, I've been approached many times where people will see a perception, whether I'm a Black male, they'll question the professional and academic pedigrees for whatever reasons that are floating through their head. Whether I got a scholarship, it was because of a quota, or because of my place in this department, it was because of a quota. Like these stigmas and these perceptions. And when it came time to really investigating design, I think there was the truthful feedback that you would get, the truthful encounters where people would say, oh, this is what the landscape looks like. This is how you sort of navigate. This is what you have to learn to succeed, yada, yada, yada. Just took that like a sponge, right? But there was the other type of feedback around, we don't see it, with no rationale in terms of why. Or, you weren't born in this environment, so you would never make it, was sort of like the rationale. And I'm like, well, I remember that first conversation when I started my career in the first place. I know if I want it bad enough and I'm curious enough, I want to figure it out. So I think through my multidisciplinary sort of journey, there's been a number of, gatekeepers, I should say, or naysayers that might have expressed their take on me in very questionable ways, where it sort of leads to the conversation back around like, hey, the current environment, we're disgusted, we're shocked, we're devastated by some of the things that we've saw so vividly over recent weeks, which, that's a whole conversation of what to do about that, right? But there's also this other stuff that I think we've all experienced as well in the places where we spend a lot of time, whether it be academia, whether it be the workplace, that we also need to talk about. These threads of sort of overt and covert supremacy that have inhibited our progress as a diverse sort of community that can participate in the realm of design and innovation. I'll stop there before I go.
I'll go for a second. I think the original question was about, did we question anybody about diversity in design throughout school? Something around that. Yeah, so I'd say a little bit close to Spencer. I didn't like question it. I just had kind of accepted it, but I didn't start noticing that I wanted my work area, my work environment, or even just what I was studying to kind of reflect my social environment until I went to Atlanta, because it was just this sea of beautiful Blackness, and I could see Black people every day wherever I went, except when I come back to study or when I come back to see, go to a lecture. And that was the same thing that I started seeing at NC State and stuff. And I think through design research, that kind of gave me agency to like just advocate for diversity, because, we always start with design research, like, what are the design insights? Who are we making this product for? And for me, that was my opportunity to find Black people, Black women, or just underrepresented groups in my design research to come back with, which would typically challenge those around me, because I feel like a lot of times we surround with people who look just like us. So if I'm around, my white male and female counterparts, they're finding those same white female male counterparts for their design research, whereas I'm looking for people that look different, that look like me. And I think that really helped to at least show like my professors or the people that I was with and around, that diversity would help come up with like different design insights, which leads to different products, which just leads to you know, a different consumer. And I feel like you can see that when it comes to like the hair industry. For a while, like Black women, even myself, were like perming their hair, you know, Eurocentric beauty, etc., trying to look like the people we're working with, or, you know, who were around, trying to be accepted in a way, like code switching through talking. Like if I go to an interview, my hair is bone straight. That's what I did. I mean, now obviously it's natural, curly, whatever, but I think that transition within the culture of Black women to accepting their hair led to different products. And now we see, instead of just having like a half ethnic aisle at Walmart, you have like textured hair, kinky coily hair, and it's like 3 different aisles, millions of products. And it's just like, that was just by finding one consumer. And so I feel like that was pretty amazing. And that was kind of the same thing I did when I was in grad school. We had this project to design like a bassinet for mothers that was just more accessible for moms. And so I was looking at, you know, maybe some single moms, like they don't have the support system to just go in there and grab their baby out of the bassinet for them. And, you know, making something that a woman can operate on her own right after giving birth, where you don't really have, you know, the muscles in your stomach to use, you barely have any energy, you have to breastfeed round the clock. And it's just, I think design research really helped me to advocate for diversity in design and just like diversity in product. And that's the same thing I'm doing at Under Armour now. Like if we're ever making like run gear that's for cold weather, like we have balaclavas, we have stuff that goes over our head, and maybe there's like a small little ponytail area. Well, like my hair's not going to fit in that. Like, so a lot of times we talk about that, or even like fitting clothes on different models. At the moment, we have no Black models. Like, is that a different body type? Like, look at our consumers. And look at our athletes that we sponsor. Black. Like, can we reflect that a little bit more in our company and throughout all of our processes, not just who we hire, like how we work? So I think design has really helped me to advocate for that and like show people reasons that we need to do that. And that's really starting to change our product and change our consumer and just adds to like, you know, our product line basically.
I think you made some interesting points that touched on a bit of aesthetics. So, you know, I think about, you know, and Kevin mentioned this as well, covert and overt, you know, white supremacy or discrimination. I wouldn't say I was discriminated against in school per se, but it was that idea of, okay, who is representing the best ideals in this thing that I'm studying? And there weren't people like me. And that's something I struggled with. So in a way, though, I kind of took that up on myself to just really push. You talk about, Jasmine mentioned, you know, sports, athletics, you know, there's a lot of representation of Black faces there. And then you go to beauty and it's kind of hard to find. And not only that, but it's kind of this like very stereotypical, not stereotypical, but rather narrow interpretation of beauty. And what that does on a level is it really just casts us in these roles, right, for everyone, because that's how we're on display. So I think, well, I don't want to get too far ahead here, but there's definitely something to be said about having that representation as you're learning about the past and you don't see it, you know, making sure that it's here for the present so that we can make changes for the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree.